Hey guys, and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be talking about the apps that I use when I travel. I'm going to break it up into 3 different sections. The apps I use for flights, accommodation, and then some miscellaneous ones. The very last app that I'm going to mention is one that I wish that I knew about when I was traveling. Unfortunately, I only found out about it on my last day in Rome. But when in Europe, this is a must-have app. It can also save you quite a bit of money if it's something that you're interested in. I'm also going to show you on my phone at the end the exact apps that you should be downloading so you can see that they're photos and make sure that you're downloading the right ones. So hopefully you enjoyed today's video. If there's anything that I've left out that you think is super handy, put it in the comments below. I'd absolutely love to know what they are. I'm also still learning, but enjoy today's video, guys.
So I unexpectedly fell into the life of a nomad. I've been traveling the world full-time on a budget and doing it solo. I want to share with you everything that I've learned along the way, so join me every Tuesday for tips, tricks and recommendations.
Okay, so first off is the apps that I use when I am looking for flights. So one of them isn't an app, but it's the main search engine, Google. So I use Google to look at my flights, Skyscanner and Hooper. Now, starting off, whenever I'm doing any search, I always start off with Hooper. Now, what Hooper is an app that you type where you want to go, and it also tells you if your flight prices that you're looking at are good, if they're bad, if it thinks that the prices are going to go down or up. So it's kind of like a flight prediction app where it can predict that the prices are going to go up or down. It will tell you this is the best price that you're going to get. So when you're looking for flights, you don't really know, like, how do you know if that's a good price, you know? So I always use that first. So at least when I'm looking at the flights, I know, okay, this is a good price. So I know that I'm going to want to book very soon. Or if it says that the prices are going to get better, then I know that I have some time and I can wait. With this app as well, you can actually track flights. So if there's a destination that you're wanting to go to, so you want to go from Canada to Rome, you can look up that flight and then watch that flight, and then it will send you notifications when the price starts to rise or starts to lower. So that is super handy. I don't book through that app. I obviously go directly to the airlines, but it's something that's super helpful to help you get better prices when you're looking for flights. So Skyscanner and Google are the 2 that I search my flights on. So once I see that the price is good through Hooper, I know, okay, now's a good time to book, or I can just do my research. So Skyscanner and Google Flights, obviously I like to use 2 because then it keeps my options open. Be wary that if you're using other ones like Expedia and things like that, sometimes you might find a small price difference between different websites. Don't get too excited. It's probably because one actually has taxes on it and the other one doesn't. That's sometimes why some have a small margin of price difference. But once you go through checkout, it's going to end up being the same price as the higher one that you saw anyway. But so keep that in mind. And if you're on a third-party website and you find a price and you really can't find it anywhere else, it's probably dodgy, so I probably wouldn't book it. Personally, I never ever book through third-party websites just because you never know what's going to happen. If something does go wrong, they ain't got your back. So the good thing about booking directly through the airline is if anything happens, if there's delays and you miss another flight, those actual airlines, they got your back. So book directly through the airline is generally the safer way to go. That's what I personally like to do. A lot of people book through other search engines and don't have any troubles, but also I hear a lot of horror stories as well. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, so I search through Google Flights and Skyscanner. I use 2 because sometimes some search engines actually have more flight companies that they actually kind of work with and have in their database. So you might find a cheaper flight on one than the other because one of them might not work with Thai Air, for example. So it just keeps your options open, and I don't know, sometimes you find flights on one that you don't find on the other, so it's nice to be able to, as well, with these 2 that I use, is you can actually see in a month's perspective, like if you fly out on Tuesday instead of Saturday, you're going to save like $70 or whatnot. So I love them too. And Hooper, really, I don't find that I need anything else. I find everything that I want there. If you have a favorite airline that you like to fly with, then obviously look directly through their website, but I just go for the cheapest one. I really don't care. So for me, it's just whatever's the cheapest that I can find, and then I go directly to the website, book it. So the second listing of apps is going to be the apps that I use to find accommodation. So when I'm searching for accommodation, I am a budget traveler, so I don't use hotels and stuff like that, but I use Hostelworld, Booking.com, Couchsurfing, and Airbnb if I decide to go down that route, which doesn't happen often, but you know, I still sometimes use it when you can't find anything else. So Hostelworld and Booking.com, now the reason that I use both of them, once again, is keeping my options open. Sometimes one will have stuff that the other doesn't, especially Hostelworld has usually got a better listing of hostels than what Booking.com does. But then again, there's been times on Booking.com that I've found a hostel on there that I haven't found on Hostelworld. So it's just better to look at them both. I'll never book one before I look at the other because you never know, you might find something cheaper on the other. Couchsurfing, I absolutely love to use Couchsurfing, but the downfall to Couchsurfing is you do have to plan a little bit more in advance. You can't really, the night before, message someone and be like, hey, you got a place for me to stay? They don't usually like that, and usually they're already going to have people booked with them when it's so last minute. So I use that when I can, and I know that far in advance, like a week or 2 weeks, I'll use that. But otherwise, unfortunately, I have to give that a miss. But sometimes you can still just hang out with the surfers, which is really cool as well. But it's a super good app to have. Like, people are really helpful in Couchsurfing. So if you cannot find a place to stay or last minute something happens, you can message a bunch of people. Sometimes you don't necessarily get answers back, or sometimes it takes a while for them to reply, but it's always just a good backup plan to have. And you can meet some really cool people on there as well. And then Airbnb, of course, like people love Airbnb. Do be careful, because I know there's a lot of places now where you can't actually use Airbnb, but it's a nice one to have, especially if you're traveling like with some other people, or if you want a private room for the night. Sometimes as well, when you're going to less touristy destinations and they don't have hostels and stuff, it is good to have that option there to kind of see if there is any places available on Airbnb. So that's the accommodation ones that I use. The next is transport. So transport is one of the harder things when traveling. So a really, really good one that I use is Rome to Rio. Rome to Rio is so great because it has long distance transport within a country, but it also has local transport as well. So I find that super helpful. The thing with the local transport is it doesn't necessarily come up with an exact timetable. It's more of a kind of guideline, like you can at least see that the bus may come twice a day, or the bus may come 7 times a day. So at least you know, okay, if I'm here and the bus only comes 2 times a day, I need to pre-plan a little bit more. Or if you know that they're coming really often, then you don't have to pre-plan as much. But I found that especially when I was in less touristy areas, Rome to Rio was actually pretty good at giving me an idea. They also do link you a website to that bus company as well that runs those buses, so you can look at the timetables. Although if you're in a foreign country, they aren't necessarily in English. So that can be a little bit hard, and because it is like local transport as well, they don't really make their websites for tourists when it's not like a really touristy area, so there's no way that you can convert it to English, which I struggled with a little bit. So usually just try and figure it out, ask for help from people that are in your accommodation or whatnot, but I've always managed to figure it out, so it's always been fine. But that's just a little side note for that one. Also, Google, the Google app, amazing, can also show you local transport as well. You just put where you want to go to and it will generally show you. Now the thing with Google is it doesn't always have everything. So sometimes I find that it does. Like, I'll always look in Google first, and if it tells me how to get there, then awesome. And then if it says that there's no route, then I'll go to Rome to Rio, because Rome to Rio generally has a little bit more, although Google is generally a little bit easier because I can literally put it in. It will come up with all the times, the bus numbers and everything super easy. So I always do that first, and then if Google Maps doesn't have the answer, then I'll go to Rome to Rio. Always have the Uber app in case of emergencies. I don't really use it, but I have on one occasion used it when I tried to hitchhike and couldn't get a ride for a while, so I ended up having to Uber. But yeah, that's always really good to have there in case of emergencies, especially if you're flying in somewhere late to a country that has Uber and you don't want to be catching a taxi that late, then you can always just be safe to order an Uber. So ones for Europe as well that I used, so these two aren't going to be handy in other countries, but when in Europe, you can use Go Euro and also BlaBlaCar. So Go Euro is amazing for long distance hauls, so from city to city. It hasn't really got local transport in there, so you're going to have to use Rome to Rio for that one, but it is super good for catching buses around the country, and they're really affordable, which is super helpful. I use a lot of Go Euro when I was in Europe, and BlaBlaCar is amazing as well. A lot of people haven't heard of it, but pretty much it's nearly like Airbnb but for cars. So if someone, for example, is driving from Barcelona to Madrid, they will post on they'll post on BlaBlaCar that destination, and then you can book a seat in their car. Now the difference is, because you're ride sharing, it's generally the cheapest option. So when I was in Portugal, there wasn't much BlaBlaCar, so I caught a lot of Go Euro. But when I was in Italy, for example, in Spain, Italy and Spain have loads of BlaBlaCar, and usually it was about half the price of the bus. So it's usually handy as well, because sometimes they would drop you off right at your accommodation, which is really handy, because a lot of the time bus terminals can sometimes be a little bit further out, which is a bit annoying. But when you're using BlaBlaCar, make sure that you look at the pickup and drop off locations, because it can say Rome, but there will be a specific part in Rome that they want to pick you up, and maybe it's a little bit further out. So do just make sure you do your research, just message them and ask them. Sometimes they're super flexible and they'll just pick you up from where you are, but some of them are a little bit stricter. Sometimes as well, they're doing really long journeys and you're just a section of that journey, so they won't actually go right into the city or whatever to pick you up. So it totally depends, just message them, but you can save a lot of money. You can meet some interesting people, sometimes good, sometimes weird, but that's part of the traveling experience, which is really awesome. So that's my transport ones. Okay, so next is the miscellaneous apps. So one is TripAdvisor. So TripAdvisor is just really good for sussing out if something's good or not, if you're into doing tours. Now, I don't use TripAdvisor too much, apart from sometimes when I'm trying to search for something to do or for food. Food is a super great thing to use TripAdvisor for, so if you know if a restaurant's good or not, because personally, eating out in another country, I want it to be good. So I like to use TripAdvisor to see if a place is good or not, get recommendations. It's also good for tours and things like that. So if, they put a lot of scams and stuff up there, so it's good to do a little bit of research first. TripAdvisor's a great place for telling you if stuff is scams or not. So it's just a nice thing to have to refer back to if you need to do a little bit of research. So the next one is Google Translate. So this is amazing if you're going to any foreign countries. Now, the thing with Google Translate is you pre-download the language that you need. So before I went to Europe, I pre-downloaded Portuguese, Spanish, and Italian. And the same, I had Spanish already in there from when I went to Peru. But you can just type in the English version of whatever it is that you're trying to say, and then it's going to translate it into the language that you need. The great thing is it will have it written there. So if you can't pronounce it, So you can press a button that will pronounce it so you can listen to it if you want to try speak it yourself, which I always try to do, just because I like to try and speak the language as much as I can. But if you can't pronounce what it says, which sometimes you can't, then you can just show them on the phone and it will have it written in their language, and then they can help you out. So actually one time I was at a club when I was in Peru, and me and someone were actually legitimately talking through Google Translate. He would put in his and I would read it, and we would just keep back and forth. So sometimes if you're trying to figure something out, you can always do that. Another thing is MapsMe. So MapsMe is another maps app. So you have Google Maps, which is great for obviously the maps and transport, but I like to always have MapsMe as well, which is the same kind of thing. You need to download the map of your region, the same for Google Maps if you're not going to have internet. So pre-download the region that you're going to be in. But the reason that I love MapsMe is it has some little bits and pieces that Google Maps doesn't. So sometimes it has some like attractions written on there. You can press kind of if you want explore, if you want, you know, the different options, and it will show you, for example, like lookout points, and it's a lot better for outdoorsy people. So personally, the main reason that I have it is it actually has hiking trails on there, which I think is amazing. So when I go hiking, if I get lost, it's very, very handy. Like MapsMe has saved me so many times. Like if I ever go somewhere, you know, Google, even if you have the offline version, it's still like not amazing when it's offline, but MapsMe is amazing when it's offline. So I always like to have MapsMe as a backup, and it's also, if you're an outdoorsy person and you like hiking, 100% download it. It'll be the best thing ever. Another thing as well is all trails. So if you're a hiker, it's a great way to find trails to be hiking. So what I do is you can just put in the location that you're going to or the region, and then it will come up with all hikes near there. It will come up with their rating, whether they're easy, moderate, and difficult. It sometimes has photos depending if people have uploaded their information to it, but it generally gives you a brief description, but at least it helps you find one, and then you can look that up on Google if you want to find out more information. But a lot of the time when I was in Canada, that's what I would do. I would just search there, look for the one with the prettiest photos, and that would be the one that I would hike, which is awesome. And then of course making sure you have WhatsApp. Obviously a lot of people use Messenger, and to be honest, most of my friends, I just message them with Messenger, but WhatsApp is super handy to have, especially if you do Couchsurfing, or if you meet people along your journeys that you don't want to be adding on Facebook. It's just super easy to get them on WhatsApp. It's just kind of between WhatsApp and Messenger are the two that I use, and everyone will have one of the two. But especially when you're meeting people overseas and they're people that you're not necessarily going to be friends with, but just for, you know, connections of some sort, usually they will have WhatsApp, especially like Couchsurfing, all that kind of thing. So make sure that you have WhatsApp as well, and you can just attach your phone number. The really great thing is I obviously swap my phone number quite a bit when I move countries, but you can always keep your same like kind of app. You don't really have to register again. You just switch your number over, and then you can send a message to everyone again and letting them know your new number. So make sure as well that you just have all your banking apps downloaded, because most people probably already have that, but when you're overseas, they are amazing. So you obviously need Wi-Fi for them, but if any emergencies or anything like that, you need to transfer money over, you just have really quick and easy access to be able to do that. So they're the miscellaneous. Now it's time for the number one app, which I only found out about literally on my last night in Rome, and I was so devastated because of all trips, like especially in Italy, this app would have came in handy so much. So what it's called is the Rick Stevens app. Let me just confirm its name. Okay, so it's called Rick Steves Audio Europe. Now, I'm not sure if he has other ones that aren't Europe, but pretty much what this app is, it's literally audiobooks of walking tours and things like that. So you can go to a new city in Europe and do a walking tour of the city, and he will be like your tour guide. So even though there is free walking tours, depending how you want to do it, if you want to be meeting new people, then you should probably go on the free walking tour because you can meet people. But if you're with someone else or you don't want to meet someone in that location, you can just use the audio guidebook that he does, and he takes you all around and you just listen to what he says. Also, for example, the Colosseum and things. So when I went to the Colosseum and the Vatican Museum and all those kinds of things, I paid for an audio guide, and they were okay. Some of them were good, some of them were bad, but I paid for an audio guide, and little did I know that there's this free app that you can use that has like endless amounts of walking tours on there. So literally you just have to download the app, and then if you know, for example, tomorrow I'm going to the Colosseum, download the Colosseum walking tour, and then you just plug in your headphones and do your walking tour for free. So the thing is as well, even if you have the app downloaded, it is an online thing. So if you haven't got data, just make sure that you download that walking tour the night before. But yeah, you can save so much money. And now I'm like, man, like, wish I had met the person that told me about this at the start of my trip, because it was literally my last night and I was pretty shattered. So now I'm going to show you what all the apps look like, because I hate when people, they tell me an app and I'm like, there's a couple there and you don't know which one it is. So here we go. So there's Hooper, Skyscanner, Hostel World, Booking.com, Couchsurfing, Airbnb, Rome to Rio, Uber, and Google Maps. There's Go Euro, TripAdvisor, MapsMe, Google Translate, All Trails, the audio guide, and WhatsApp. So yeah, hopefully this was helpful for you guys. If you don't have any of those apps, go and download them. They're super helpful. There's obviously a lot more apps that I probably don't even know about. So if you know some, put them down below because I'd love to know them. Now there's also a lot of kind of sorting apps nowadays as well that will kind of take your emails and put them into a schedule for you. So I did try to use those apps and I did have them, but I just never used it because I just remember kind of what I had going on and the dates and stuff like that. And usually I have stuff written on my phone, but if you're someone who's booking something super far in advance, that's something that could also be of benefit to you. But that's all for today. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up, hit subscribe so you can see my video next week, and I will see you then.